Good evening, everyone. So, I'm Manish from Tax Mantra, and we will today have a session regarding labor law compliances, which includes PF, ESI, and professional tax. So, we will take the questions and queries after the session is like completed. Uh, let's begin with the first part. Yeah. So we'll start with ESIC, that is Employee State Insurance. I'll read that part out for you. Uh, Employer State Insurance is a health insurance scheme for Indian workers. The same is managed by ESIC, that is Employer State Insurance Corporation, which is statutory body administered by the law under the Ministry of Labor and Employment, Government of India. So basically, it is a scheme for the Indian workers, like anywhere, in a factory, in a like company, anywhere. This is an insurance for all the employees and employee related like dependent people, and the benefits that includes are the medical benefits, maternity benefits, dependent benefits, rehabilitation allowance, funeral expenses, sickness allowance, disablement benefit. So now we will speak about the like applicability for a company or for organization. It is mandatory to take a like registration under ESIC when the number of workers exceeds 10, and the number of workers also includes the owner itself. Like the for companies, it can be director; for partnership firm, it can be partners, including the partners or the directors. All the employees like are counted in this number of employees. So when a like entity or establishment crosses the like minimum limit of workers, that is 10, then it is mandatory to have a PSIC registration, and it has to be done within 30 days from the date of exceeding the number of employees. And in case of like employees that we call IP, insured person. So when a company is enrolled under ESIC, the new employees who joins is called IP, and they have to be registered if their gross fixed wages is less than 21,000 per month. So there is a mandatory requirement of ESIC enrollment for any employee whose salary is less than 21,000 and the company is like registered with the ESIC. So the first requirement is that the company has to be registered with ESIC, and once the company is registered with ESIC, then any new employee or any existing employee whose salary is less than 21,000 has to be enrolled in ESIC, and the deduction has to be made from their salary, and a contribution of like a percentage has to be made by the employer as well. So what are the like rates? The rates are like the contribution rate for employees is 0.75% of their fixed wages. Basically, an employee having 10,000 of salary has to contribute 75 rupees from his salary as ESIC. And similar to that, the employer will also contribute, but at a different percentage. That would be 3.25% of that salary. So for an employee having 10,000 of salary, the employee will contribute 75 rupees from his salary, and the employer will contribute 325 rupees from their company or the entity. So the due dates for ESIC return and filing is 15th of the succeeding month. That is next month, 15th, we have to submit the return and we have to make the payment. So for May, it will be 15th of June, and for June, it will be 15th of July. And there is a requirement of semi-annual return, which has to be like submitted by the establishment uh, semi-annually. That is by 11th of November for period from April to September, and for October to March, they have to submit this like return by 11th of May. This like this annual return has semi-annual return has to be assigned like attested by the CA, or anyone who can who is the authorized person of the company. Then the penalty for non-compliance. So if you are enrolled under ESIC and if you have not made the payment for the contribution that has to be made, then there is a late payment interest that is of 12% per annum, or we can say that per month it has to be 1% for any single day. If a single day has also been delayed, then 1% is chargeable on that particular contribution amount. And if this amount has not been paid, then there are also some damages, like damage on late payment, which are basically divided on slabs. For 0 to 2 months of delay, there is a 5% damages, and for 2 to 4 months, this damages is 10%. For 4 to 6 months, it's 15%, and over 6 months delay, it is 25% per annum. So for a single day delay, you have to make a payment of 1% on the liability as the interest payment, and for damages, you have to make a payment of 5% per annum. So with regards to ESIC, there are 3 types of notices which you can get for late payment from the department. So what happens is basically you cannot manually make the payment for late payment of ESIC. Once you make the payment of ESIC for the month contribution, then the department will raise an invoice, raise a notice against you, and they will ask you to make the payment. So what are the 3 types of notices? That is C18, that is for interest. So if there is any requirement of interest, you have made any delayed in payment and the department has noticed that, they will ask you to pay an interest. This interest is payable under C18. You can also check the site for the interest liability if there is any. And for damages, it is D18. Similar notice named D18, where you need to pay the damages for delayed payments. Then there is a notice which is called C18. So in some cases there might be defaults in registration, delay in registration, or there might be no contribution, and the department might check, and they might feel that there is a discrepancy. They might charge you under C18, which is ad hoc, which basically means this is not the final notice. And this final notice, for getting the final notice against this, you need to make represent your case, and you need to have a proper presentation whether you are liable for that amount of interest or damages or not, and that has to be submitted. The documents against that has to be submitted within 15 to 20 days from the receipt of this notice C18, which is called C18 ad hoc. Once you are through this and you get a final amount of the liability which is required to be paid, they will the department will issue a C18 actual, which is against the ad hoc notice, and where the final amount which has to be paid is mentioned. So that's it. And then there are some facts which generally we don't look in, but they are very important facts, which is if any IP has just joined the company or entity or establishment, they have to be registered within 10 days from the date of joining. So suppose any employee who has joined on 1st of April has to be registered on the ESIC portal of the establishment within 10 days, that is by 10th of April, or else that the portal won't allow you to add or make the contribution for that particular person. And for getting over it, you have to go to the department and you have to submit some documents and you have to give a reasoning. They might charge you for penal also on regards to this, and then you can contribute for that particular person. So for any employee who has just joined in and who is liable to have a ESIC contribution, they have to be added on the ESIC portal within 10 days from the date of joining. Then If any IP who wants to exit from the ESIC scheme due to change in salary, they can only exit the contributing period, that is from April. If you are submitting a return for April, then only they can contribute, like they can exit. And in the meanwhile, if an employee gets an increment or gets a salary change, and they are out of the ESI coverage, but they get this change in May, they cannot exit from the ESIC scheme until September. So for any change in salary or any kind of change in employees existing employees salary, and which is actually making them exit from the ESIC scheme, they can opt out only in the month of April or September while filing their contribution. But with regards to this, if there is an employee who has left the establishment, then the employee can be removed or can be opted out anytime at any period of the year. And then there is a limit, that is exemption. Basically, any employees or any worker who is having daily wages of rupees 176 or below is not required to have any deduction. Their contribution has to be paid by the government. So the contribution of any employee whose per day salary, per day wages is 176 or below, their contribution is paid by the government, but their contribution from the employer's end has to be paid by the employer itself. And with regards to the earlier mentioned damage charges, there was mentioned that 25% is the maximum, is the limit for delay of 6 months or more, but that cannot exceed more than 100%. That is, if the liability of which is not being paid is 100 rupees, then the damage charges cannot exceed 100 rupees. So that's it for the part on ESIC. Now we move on to EPF, Employees Provident Fund. Okay. So Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provision Act 1952. The scheme is managed by the AIS of Employee Provident Fund Organization, that is EPFO. Under this scheme, the employee has to pay certain contribution, 12% of the gross wages, towards the scheme, and an equal contribution is paid by the employer. The employee gets a lump sum amount including self and employer's contribution with interest on both on retirement. So basically, any employee who has joined an establishment which is registered under the EPFO Act, they have to make a contribution of 12% from their salary on the gross wages, and the equal amount of contribution has to be paid by the employer. But the applicability is mentioned below. What are the terms, what are the rules? So for employers, registration is necessary when the minimum limit of employees, here the number of employees means the only number of employees, not the directors or partners, only number of employees. If they exceed more than 20, then within 15 days, the registration has to be done for EPF. And if not, they will face some penal charges over there. And in terms of employees, an employee has to be registered under EPF if their salary is less than 15,000 rupees per month. So any employees of an EPFO registered entity whose wages is less than 15,000 rupees, they have to be enrolled under EPFO Act. And similar, and then their contribution of 12% has to be deducted while payout, and an equal amount has to be paid by the employer as a contribution. So the rates for contribution for employees is 12% of the gross wages for the month, and for the employers it is similar, that is 12% per month. There are some changes due to COVID for EPFO. but we will mention those at the end of the session. Right now, we are just talking about the act, which is actually there, and then the certain changes for certain period we will mention over like in the end. So while filing the EPF return, there are two different charges apart from the contribution by employee and employer. Those are, one is EDLI charges and the other one is like admin charges. So for EDLI charges, it is basically an insurance cover for the employees, and here like 0.5% of the employee's salary or maximum of 75 rupees has to be like contributed by the employer. This amount, these charges are to be borne by the employer and not by the employee. So the EDLI charges is called account number 21 as per EPFO Act, and the admin charges, that is also 0.5% of the fixed wages, it is also like borne by the employer, but it is called account number 2. But in case of admin charges, if there is no contribution even for the month, then also rupees 500 has to be paid. That is, if there is a nil filing also, then rupees 500 has to be paid to the government, to the EPFO by the employer. And the due dates for filing EPF return and payment of EPF return is 15th of the succeeding month, that is 15th of the next month. Similar to SIC, it has to be paid by 15th of every like next month, and the return has to be filed along with it. So like going like back, the employees having 15,000 or less has to be like enrolled mandatorily, but any employee having rupees 15,000 or more as a monthly wages, they can voluntarily opt in for EPF scheme. There is no hard and fast rule for any employee having more than 15,000 rupees of salary, but if they want, they can opt in for the contribution. Then we talk about the penalty of non-compliance. So if there is a late payment of EPF by the employer, then the contribution, like there is a late interest payment of 12% per annum for every day. Like this amount has to be calculated on everyday basis instead of per month basis at 12% per annum. And similar to SIC, there are some penal charges as well, which is under section 14B, and the charges are for up to 2 months 5%, 2 to 4 months it is 10%, delay of 4 or 6 months it is 15%, and more than 6 months it is 20%, but a maximum of 100% of the contribution amount. So under EPF Act, there is a scheme by the government which was launched in 2016, which is Pradhan Mantri Rozgar Prosthan Yojana scheme, PMRPY. This is basically a scheme where the government has helped the employers by reducing their liability of contributing. That is, suppose any employer, I'll straight away go to the criteria. What are the rules and regulations? So any establishment where there are not more than 100 employees, they can opt for this, and the employees who are under this scheme are basically the ones whose monthly salary is less than 15,000 rupees. So what happens is the government has brought in a scheme where the employer's contribution is being paid by the government, but for only limited employees or for limited people, those are semi-skilled and unskilled and have a salary of wages of less than 15,000 rupees per month, and the establishment has to be a SME or MSME. The admin charges and EDLI charges has to be borne by the employer, and the employer has to be LIN complied. Like they have to take a registration on labor identification number from Shram Suvidha, where they can enroll their EPFO number and then they can opt for this scheme. But for PMRCY, the like form has to be filed within 10th of every month. Like for May, it has to be filed by 10th of June, and then you can make the contribution. So in this like scheme, the employers get benefited that their contribution for those employees is being paid by the government rather than by themselves. So that's it. Now we move on to professional tax. So professional tax is basically state level taxes which are actually applied on any kind of salaried employees, professionals, or like any kind of freelancers or any business owners who are carrying out businesses in particular states. So the applicability is basically state wise, and in some states this is not applicable, the professional tax. But there are only certain states where professional tax is mandatory, and those are mentioned over here. Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Bihar, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Meghalaya, Odisha, Assam. So basically, these are the states where PTAX is applicable. And there are two types of registration. One is enrollment certificate registration, and the other one is registration certificate. So under the under the PTAX Act, you need to get two type of registration. One is EC and the other one is RC. So what is EC and RC? I have mentioned over here. So EC is for any business entity who are carrying out any kind of business. So for example, a company, LLP, any kind of partnership firm, they have to take this like EC number. Any kind of professional who is like a freelancer or a sole proprietor firm, they have to take EC, and then they have to get under this registration, and they have to make payments of PTAX. So the PTAX payment has to be made like annual basis under this EC number. And in some states, EC is also applicable for directors and partners of the companies and LLPs respectively. For LLPs and companies, the professional tax amount under EC is fixed. But for sole proprietorship firm, it is basically based on the turnover of the previous year. Like for directors, partners, freelancers, it is based on the last year's salary. Then RC number. So RC number is basically for any kind of employer. A company can, like a company, entity, anyone, a freelancer, they can also have EC number as well as RC number. So RC number is mandatory when you are employing even a single employee. So under RC number, you will deduct the PT from their salary, the employee salary, and then the payment has to be made to the government by the employers on behalf of the employees. And it is like in some state it is monthly payment, in some state it is semi-annually, and in some it is quarterly. And like in some state it is also annually. Like in Maharashtra, they have an option where you can like make the payment annually or as well as monthly. Tax is basically based on the salary slabs for each employee. So there is no such fixed rate where in any state. All states have their different slab rates. I've mentioned that in the next slide. Let's move on to that. Before that, the returns has to be filed for this PT, and those are also like annual or semi-annual or monthly basis. I've given example over here. Next slide. So for state of West Bengal, the salary slab is such like this. For any employees having salary less than 10,000 rupees, there is no PTAX reduction. For 10,001 to 15,000, it is 110. For 15,000 to 25,000, it is 150. And similarly, for more than 40,000, it is 200. In Maharashtra, if you see, it is like for up to 7,500, there is no PTAS deduction required. For 7,501 to 10,000, it is 175, but it is not applicable for women. So women employees who are having monthly salaries of 7,501 or like 10,000, it is not applicable for them. Any kind of employee like having salary of more than 10,001 rupees has to contribute rupees 200, but for April to Jan and for March. For February, there is a different slab, that is rupees 300. So basically, if you see for the whole year, any employee having 10,000 or more as a salary per month, the contribution will be 2,500 per annum, which is very different in different states. In Karnataka, they have a different slab rate. In Telangana, there is a different slab rate. So that's it. And the payments and returns. So basically, pre-tax payments are also different in every state, and the return policy is also different. So for West Bengal, it has to be paid by 21st of every next month. Like for April, it has to be paid by 21st of May. And for Tamil Nadu, it is semi-annual payment, which is 30th of September for 6 months, April to September. And then from October to March, it has to be paid by 31st of March. This is in Tamil Nadu. And then for Maharashtra, it is 20th of every next month, of succeeding month, you can say. And the annual returns which we are speaking about, or the returns. So for West Bengal, there is no return required every month while making the payment. Only one time return is required, that is annual return. And the due date for this is 30th of April. For financial year 1920, it has to be filed by 30th April 2020. And for Tamil Nadu, it is semi-annual return. That is 30th September for first 6 months, and for the next 6 months, it has to be filed by 31st of March. So if you see Tamil Nadu, then the payment and the returns has to be filed by 30th September and 31st of March half yearly. And in Maharashtra, there are the 28th of every month has to be filed. If you're making a payment on every month, then this return has to be filed every month, or else the annual return has to be filed at 31st of May of the succeeding year. So we'll now talk about the relief that the government has provided us, with the compliance, with this above mentioned compliance. So for EPF, government has brought in relief for 3 months. That is for the month of May, June, and July. They have reduced the rate of contribution for both employees and employers from 12 to 10%, so that the employees can have maximum in-hand salary for this 3 months. As of now, the notification is like that. Then we have a scheme where Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, which was brought in in March, where the government said that any kind of establishment where there are not more than 100 employees and 90% or more of the capacity is getting monthly wages of less than 15,000. Over there, the government has brought in a scheme where their salary for the 3 months, the contribution for the 3 months, that is for March, April, and May, will be paid by the central government. So under this scheme, the government said that they will make the payment of employees and employers' contribution of 12 plus 12%, that is 24%, for the next 3 months from that is March, April, and May, only if the employee's salary is 15,000 or less, and the capacity of the company is not more than 100 employees. And the last criteria is that 90% of the employees earn less than 15,000 per month. So this was one benefit that the government has given. And the last like relief that the government has given is in with regards to the PTAX annual return. So for financial year 1920, the annual return, government has extended the due date from 30th, from 30th of April to 30th of October for West Bengal, and for Maharashtra they have exceeded the due date from 31st May to 31st of July. So that's it. We are open for questions now. If there is any query regarding this, you can drop in your queries in our chat box. We are also live on Facebook. You can drop over there. So I think there are no questions. Um, so we have our offices in US, India, and Singapore, and the mentioned are like the global delivery centers. You can contact us over there. Or if you have any queries, you can drop us a mail over the mentioned email. Thank you, everyone.